Hey there, and welcome to another live coding session, or as I might start calling them, another live operations session. Um, so as you might recall, I've been working on my home lab. I wanted to reach out to the Fedora community as well. So welcome to the Fedora YouTube channel and to my LinkedIn as well. So today, what I want to work on is I'm going to be doing a lot of different projects in the coming weeks. So things like trying to get out of an RSS subscription that's paid and bring that in house. And we've already migrated my WordPress site, and so what I'm planning on doing is rebuilding my home lab using as many Fedora and Fedora related um, projects as I can. So things like Fedora Server, Fedora Workstation are kind of the obvious ones. Also upstream are things like Pulp or Foreman. We've got an upcoming interview around those communities. So as we kind of do interviews on the Fedora podcast, which by the way is live today here in just a couple of hours, we're going to be talking about development from a community perspective. So definitely stay tuned for that here in a few hours. But one of the first things that I wanted to do was to build out a excuse me, was to build out a golden image, if you will, basically a template for Fedora server instances, so that I can spin up and tear down servers fairly quickly. So because I only have a couple of hours, we're going to get that image built today, and then later on down the road, what we'll do is I want to build some Ansible playbooks in around it. So basically, using Ansible to spin up a virtual machine, rebuild a new image, and then save that ISO or save that QCOW2 file on my Unraid server. That way, I've always got a fairly up to date image, and we can make changes to it as we go, that kind of thing. So we'll be using. I think it's TOML files for blueprints. We'll use Ansible playbooks in the future for automating the maintenance of those packages. But for now, let me go ahead and share my screen. Excuse me. So these have been a lot of fun, and I appreciate those that come and hang out with me. So what we're looking at here is my Unraid server. This is ITG IT Guy 01. I know I said Fedora, but I'm using Unraid on the back end. Don't judge. I may change that at some point. So here's what I wanted to take a look at here. I've got an ISO share that I want to make sure is available to my home network. So we're going to take a look here, make sure that works before we get into Image Builder. So yeah, cache, we want it to be on fast storage because it takes forever to copy our RPMs off of an ISO, especially if you're like mounting it through bare metal into a virtual machine. Let's see. So NFS. So anything on my network can get to it. We may tighten that up here at some point, but I've got some networking work to do as well. Excuse me. So it looks like our share is working. I don't have any SMB, so that's good. I think we're in a good place there. So we should be able to share that with any of our servers. All right. So let's go into Image Builder here. Now this is Cockpit. It is the web console for Fedora, CentOS. I think Ubuntu uses it. I know RHEL uses it. Uh, so Cockpit is amazing. I've got some content out there about using the web console. Um, quick tour here. It gives you an overview of what the system is. As you can see, this is just sort of a virtual workstation. It's got 4 vCPUs and 8 gigs of RAM. You can see there's a QEMU virtual machine, and I can look at logs, storage, networking, local accounts. Software updates is a big one. So you can see that every morning at 7 a.m., this virtual workstation runs updates. So if you haven't used Cockpit, completely tangential to the conversation, but it's amazing. Runs on port 9090 as a WebSocket. It's really a great tool. Now, the reason why I mention that is that one of the tools, one of the apps that you can install inside of Cockpit is Image Builder. So what Image Builder does is it basically allows you to customize your own install ISO. So as you can see, I've already got one out here. I want to make sure that cockpit's enabled. I want to make sure that kdump's disabled. Then firewall, we want to make sure that cockpit is there. So that's explicitly mentioned. It probably does that on package install, but this is a golden image. We want this to be as good to go as possible. We don't want we don't want to have to make a lot of unnecessary tweaks. Um, goodness. It was 60 degrees Fahrenheit here yesterday, and today it's 30 degrees. So I apologize that breathing is just so much fun. So let's see. What else can we do? I can add in root level SSH keys, or as you can see here, I've got an SSH key for my Ansible user, and Ansible has a password. It's set up as an admin. I've got a host name set that I can then later on use to make changes. So I can always tell, hey, Ansible playbook, take Fedora 00 host name and give it a different host name. Let's see. So file system, I want to use automatic partitioning. So we won't do anything manual there. SSH keys, I don't really have anything root level. We'll probably manage that later on with, excuse me, with Ansible. Groups, I don't have any plans for any additional groups at the moment. I mean, for the moment, I'm using Ansible as sort of a service account. In fact, the system isn't even going to have my own personal user. The idea is, the idea being that if I have to log into a production system, then I've failed. You want to make sure that you have automation in place. So we'll use an automatic file system that dumps pretty much most everything into the root file system. So if it's going to be a large server, like maybe a Foreman server, we might add an additional disk manually when we spin that up. So that's kind of the first two columns. This is customizations. So then kernel, you can actually enter command line arguments. So like for instance, nothing on my network uses IPv6, so I just disable it. Time zone. So I want to get the let me grab the exact code here because it's let's see. Let me look that up real quick. So, like, I know my NTP server is 192.168.1.1. And then I guess it's just America, Chicago here for Central Time. We'll see if it takes that. Yeah, see, it's... yeah, sometimes it can be a little buggy. We may have to make that change from the command line here in a little bit. But keyboard, I'm using US keyboard, UTF-8. Fido is pretty cool. It's Fido and OpenSCAP have to do with some security settings. We won't do any of that right now. I just want to make sure that I get a solid base image going here. And then Ignition is kind of like the next generation of Kickstart. Ignition files are pretty cool. We may play with that a little bit later. So packages. This is one of the big ones because I use a lot of the same tools, things like wget and Vim enhanced, bash completion, things that I want to make sure that I have on every single server. So I may not have specified any packages. And in fact, we probably should have gone through the blueprint wizard. So it'll ask me, we should probably specify Fedora server. For vanilla Fedora server latest. That way I know, because what I'd like to do is automate the standing up of new. Yeah, I didn't specify any packages. That's why. Um, oh no, I did. I did. Okay. And for some reason, it refreshed my screen. So I did select some packages. So cronny, cockpit bridge, network manager, bash completion, package kit, SE Linux. So a lot of plugins for cockpit, which I may actually take out. Um, things like PCP, TuneD, Vim enhanced, bash completion. That's weird why it's refreshing my screen. Stop it. So we didn't make any changes there. So because it's refreshing my screen for some weird reason, let's refresh it here. Uh, I did mention that here in a couple of hours, we'll be live for the official Fedora podcast. We'll be talking about developing in open source. We've got an amazing guest who's looking to talk to us about working in the KDE SIG, so the special interest group. So we'll be talking more about Fedora here in just a little bit. So I don't really have any other customizations I make to the kernel. We'll probably move through this fairly quick since we already did this. It keeps refreshing my screen too. It's getting annoying. So you can see Ansible set as a server administrator, so it'll be in the wheel group. I'll move out of the wheel group later on. What I'm showing is how to basically do iterative development even as a systems administrator. So yeah, I think most of this is probably pretty good. So let's go ahead and so we don't have any images. Let's go ahead and create an image. We want to do Fedora server. And I've got a few options here. I can export it as a QEMU QCOW2 file. I could throw it up on Oracle Cloud Infrastructure. We could create an IoT tar file. I'm going to make a couple of images here. First, we'll create kind of your traditional installer. Of course, it fails. So this is something I've been having troubles with the Fedora version. Um, so it's saying I can only create those image types. So it's weird that we would see those customizations but not be able to create anything more than that. So we're going to drop down to the terminal here. That's interesting. No, it's DNF provides, not what provides. I think that was an older version. So while that's searching here, rebuilding our index. Really appreciate you folks hanging out with me. This is I love building new servers. I find it almost relaxing. So we're still rebuilding that index. So if you're hanging out, feel free in the chat to let me know how you build out new images and what processes you use, whether that's Kickstart, Ignition, or just manually by hand. So I'm not sure why it didn't install. That may be what our problem is. And I forgot to tell it what we're doing with that package. On a roll today. Let's try doing a reinstall on this package. See if maybe that's what's going on. If you want to chat with me while we're playing, you can join me on Matrix. And really want to thank FreeHive Agency out at freehive.com. They create a lot of the iconography, a lot of the graphics that you see. The intro bumper was theirs, and they've very graciously traded me some work for promoting them on the show. So if you want a basically an all-in-one branding agency that loves open source, they use all open source tools, check out FreeHive Agency. Okay, so it's reinstalled that package. So let's try. See, that's weird. Let's try reinstalling that client. It's available but not installed. All right, y'all saw it. It said it couldn't install it or for something like that. But okay, so now we're installing. Isn't this fun? See, there it is. Composer, CLI, list. Should be blueprints, I believe. Oh, no. But you know what? What I want to do here is I might have missed some packages. So we're going to go ahead and install everything, even some of the optional packages, because I thought I did that ahead of time, but okay, so everything is installed. So then what we'll want to do is we'll want to do Composer CLI blueprints. Yeah, it's blueprints list. That's awesome. Sudo. There we go. Fedora and Fedora server. So what we can do is sudo group add. I gotta remember which one it is, uppercase or lowercase. Sudo group add. Yeah, I think we want lowercase there. Welder, IT guy Eric. Valid group ID. Let's see. I swear I know what I'm doing. So we're going to do a grep for welder. So it's 969. There we go. This should give me the permissions I need. 969. So what I'm trying to do is that I may have gotten ahead of a few folks. What I'm trying to do here is first make this a little easier to read, but I'm trying to look at what blueprints we have from the command line, trying to do that as my own user, and ran into some issues with the group. So, sudo group add group. Interesting. Oh, geez, group add. What I want is user mod, and then I think it's lowercase g. I want to append G with welder for IT guy Eric. I think that's what I want to do. I think that's the right one. Yeah, that adds it as a. Yep. Okay. So now what I can do is I can exit this, refresh it. Actually, maybe that's been the issue because I wasn't part of that group. I'm going to delete the old blueprint because we want to be more specific. So now we're going to try and create that ISO again. It may have been a groups issue. Nope. So let's go back to terminal here. Let's look for composer. I shouldn't need sudo anymore. Fine. So that's the only one we have. You know what? Maybe I need to log out and log back in. May not have the root accounts enabled here. This was supposed to be easy. But technology never is it? Okay, so we'll try my Ansible account because that's kind of the original. Yeah, I don't. That's ridiculous. It's in the web console, but it's not. Okay, well, at least permissions are working now. All right, so let's see. So what I want to do is let's do a composer. Come on, autocomplete. Thank you. Compose, start. Let's do Fedora server, and let's try Qtao to see if this gives us more information. Missing packages, cockpit PCP, DNF. Let's see what PCP packages we have. Okay, so that may be part of our problem. So we have a package in the list that so what we're going to do is we are going to try editing the blueprint directly. The web console doesn't want to cooperate. Oh, goodness. So what we're going to do here is we're going to do a composer, CLI, blueprints, save, and then Fedora server. And then if we look here in the local file, there's fedora server.toml. Why it's .toml, I don't know. So we're going to do a 3dd, which deletes 3 lines, which gets rid of that cockpit -pcp. Wonder if it has a different name now, but we're going to save that file. Okay, so we edited it. Now we're going to push that, and it doesn't like to autocomplete composer-CLI. And then blueprints, push, and then we're going to push that back up. And then let's see if maybe now that we fixed that, if we were just getting a false positive and not save, start. Hello, Nate. Hello, Professor. Welcome to the chaos. Okay, so that looks like that was it because now it's added to the queue. So it was not, in fact, an issue with the wizard. It was an issue with a package that wasn't that didn't exist. Wonder if it's only a rel thing. So now we should have a different version. No, it didn't. So if we look at packages here, oh, cockpit, how I love you. Is it build status? Sorry, I have my notes over here and very quickly status show. Oh, for crying out loud. Okay, so it is still building that image. So that's good to see. Yeah, Nate should be working instead of hanging out, goofing off. As if the package names are the same from Fedora to rel. I would think they would be, and I do too. So that's an interesting problem that we have there. But so I want to try and close out this tab as well, just because you never know. That's what's nice about these live streaming sessions is they end up being just one big. Okay, so see, there we go. So we definitely had some permissions issues because now we can see that I built an image back on August 22nd. And you see now that Fedora server, the one we just updated, is now building. And I bet that if I create an image from Fedora server as an ISO, I bet you this would queue up as well. Oh, I love how technology just wants to prove you wrong. Why? I blame Nate. I think it's Nate's fault. All right, so we're going to switch over to the terminal proper where I have a tmuck session going. So if we get weird issues where it like refreshes or something like we are seeing in the terminal. So then I want to do, I bet that'll work. No. Is it image installer? I would find it hard to believe that there's that much difference between image builder in RHEL and image builder in Fedora. So what did we do? We did a QCOW2. Will that kick off successfully? So that looks like it's starting, but for some reason it doesn't like ISOs. So sudo composer CLI status show. Okay, so that's just the backend for the instance here. Okay. So while I get my brain back together, definitely make sure you join us later on today for the Fedora podcast. We'll be live talking about development and open source. We'll be talking about how to get involved and some tools that you can use, that kind of thing. So definitely stick around for that here in just a couple of hours. I'm apparently better prepared for that than I am this. So we can go ahead and delete that toml file because we pushed it back up. But let me see here. Composer CLI blueprints lists. Yeah, still just that Fedora server. And let me see. Let's output the names of compose types. I've got the man page pulled up on a website on the other side. Yeah, so it would be image installer to get an ISO image, but I'm not sure why that's not working. Manifest creation failed. Unsupported blueprint customizations found for image type image installer. So since it's working for a QCOW2 file, but not for a installer file, I find that really interesting. But that's interesting. So the one I built when I originally built Jarvis, which is my virtual workstation, it was a QCOW2 file as well. So it must just have much more stringent restrictions on what you can include. So user group, FIPS, installer, time zone, locale. It doesn't say anything about packages. That seems weird to me. Sorry, I forgot I had the lower third up. So Nate is asking which terminal we're looking at. This is just a terminal within VS Code, if that's what you're asking. It's to my virtual workstation, who I call Jarvis. Okay, so let's check on the compose status. So that's still running. And then here's a fun fact. You can add the watch command. And so every 2 seconds, it should refresh and let us know. Yeah, the clock's ticking. So if you look up here in the corner, you see that the clock is incrementing every couple of seconds and our status is running. So that image is building. But yeah, Nate, I'm just using VS Code here to, and I've got access to my local system, and then in another tab, I've got tmux session up for right now just Jarvis, but I usually have a terminal session to Jarvis to ITGO1, which is my Unraid server. It just kind of helps keep everything organized. And you never know when you want to just pop open you never know when you want to open up like an Ansible file and make changes to it and then just jump right back into the terminal. So it works out nice. I do like VS Code, though I don't do nearly as much with it. Okay, so that image is finished. Okay, so going to add a new tab here for ITGO1, and then SSH to root for ITGO1. Okay, so we'll need that here in a minute. Control C out of the watch command. So basically, what watch does is every 2 seconds it just refreshes that command. So we were just doing a status command, so it just reran that status every 2 seconds. Makes it really nice, so you don't have to just sit here and push up on the keyboard, enter, up on the keyboard, enter. It's there. It's ready to go. All right, so next, let's see, FS tab. Okay, so it looks like I do have. So underneath the mount directory, I have another directory called depot. Depot is just kind of a dumping ground that's hosted on my Unraid server where I just put configs or like user icons for workstations, that kind of thing. So since I see that that's working well, I can just take this, copy it, because I think ISOs should just work, and we'll create a directory under mount. How about mount mount ISOs? Oh, how about sudo mount ISOs? There we go. Okay, and then let me make sure, jump over to our other system here. This is my Unraid box. It should be under users, mount user ISOs. So yeah, I got that. Make sure that we got it right here. CFS tab, mount user ISOs. So if I do a sudo mount -a, it should grab that. Ow, no. Okay. Not a big deal. I forgot to do a daemon reload because we changed the fs tab file, and then we should be able to do a mount -a and mount ISOs. Yay! Now I have access to all my ISOs right here, and so I could actually just use wget to refresh some of these. Excuse me. So our do matrix I don't need in this directory here. Let's move to downloads. Sorry, complete tangent there. Pay no attention to the goober behind the curtain. So thank you all for hanging out. This is me attempting to build a golden image. So what we're going to do now is I need to pull that completed image, which I think is blueprint pull. Is it composer pull? Let me check the. So let's grab the composer CLI compose list. So we want the Fedora server one that we did today. So we'll do composer CLI compose image. Let's see if I can grab the whole thing there. Okay. And so what that'll do is that'll pull it from the directory it lives in, which is like var lib os build something. This just downloads it to our local directory. In this case, my home directory. So what we're going to do now is we're going to move that into mount. I know it's not an ISO. Don't judge. Actually, I could technically put it under depot. How about that? Like I said, don't judge me. Mount ISOs, and then we're going to call it Fedora server compose 2025 0204.qcow2. Do I really want the version number? No, because I'm eventually going to just eventually I'm just going to overwrite that file automatically, probably using Ansible. So we're going to do a move, rename, and move it onto the Unraid server all at once. So that's done. So in fact, it is var lib os build composer, and then I think it's under artifacts. Maybe not. So it's under that var lib os build composer directory. Maybe it's jobs. Oh, for crying out loud. So yeah, you can see some of the different JSON files for some of the jobs I've run in the past. So we've fixed some permission issues. We've created some groups. We've cursed the name of Cockpit, but we do have a usable QCOW2 file that now lives on my Unraid box. So what we can do here is we can switch back to the Unraid server and go to VMs, and I think I can. So here's Jarvis. Jarvis lives on as a virtual machine on top of my Unraid ITGO1. You may remember in the live coding episode 1, we spun up my old matrix server, which still isn't working. I should probably fix that I should probably finish that project, don't you think? So what we can do is we can add a VM, and we want to mark it as Fedora. Hey, if you work for Unraid, if you wouldn't mind, the Fedora icon, the CentOS icon, and the Red Hat icon are all out of date. So if if you could just go ahead and fix that, that'd be great. Okay. So we're just going to use this as a text box. So we'll just call it Fedora 00. Um, we'll just call it, say, Ansible test, because we'll start building some Ansible playbooks against this. Love it. Got 12 people hanging out. Welcome, welcome. I don't remember what CPU cores I have assigned to what, so we'll come back to that. I want 4 gigs of RAM, which should be more than enough to just run some playbooks against. Everything else, I think we'll keep. As default. We'll give it 32 gigs of RAM or 32 gigs of storage. See, this is why I wanted the ISO, because then we could run an install. But what I may have to do is I don't remember if there's a way to use an existing disk. That's if we want to use a second disk. So what I may do is just create the virtual machine, copy because it's an image instead. So this may not work long term. Actually, I think that QCOW and IMG files are maybe not identical, but looks like there is a QEMU -IMG package. So that may be part of our Ansible playbook, as we create a new QCOW2 file and then convert it to an image file. So this may be a little bit more involved than I thought, but with automation here, we could be in good shape. We could even give it access to my NVIDIA card. Excuse me. So I think for now, we don't want to start after creation. So let's give that a try here. Let's create the VM. We won't start it. So now we've got Fedora 00 created. So pardon me as we jump back over to VS Code, and we'll jump over to mount ISOs. I'm not sure why it's stale. Okay, let's see if the package already exists on. Oh, it does. It does. Okay, so if we do QEMU IMG convert from QCOW to raw. Guess it would help if I'm in the right directory, huh? Man, I may need to reboot my computer here, because we're having all kinds of issues today, aren't we? Lost my screen share. There we go. Okay. We'll have to see if Eric gets his stuff together before before the Fedora podcast. Oh goodness. Okay, so there it is. Fedora server compose QCOW2. So let's do QEMU IMG convert -f QCOW2-O raw, and then we're going to do that Fedora server compose to Fedora server compose, but instead of QCOW2, we're going to do IMG. Okay. So while that's converting here, that's so weird. Okay. So just some weirdness. Okay. While that's converting, let's see if we've got QEMU IMG installed. Because that way we can do this all from Jarvis. It is installed. Okay, so cool. So we can actually um, we might have to script it, or we might be able to pull it off with an Ansible playbook. I'm hoping for an Ansible playbook because that's just easier to maintain long term. Um, so my hope is that once we get the Ansible playbook created, then we can have that. Uh, Jarvis runs all the time, so we won't have to spin up that virtual machine, but we can just call Composer um, to rebuild that image, uh, pull it down to a local directory, run that QEMU IMG conversion from QCOW2 to IMG, and then move it over to my Unraid server. That way, it's ready to go. Which now we've got that Fedora server IMG file. So remember that we already created Fedora 00. So let's copy Fedora server, compose IMG over to mount user. I think it's domains and then Fedora 00. And we're just going to overwrite that file. This may work, this may not. I didn't remember that Unraid uses IMG instead of QCOW2. So let's start the console and open up VNC. And I got to switch my share again. So it's booting. That's a good sign. Let me resize the window here. Apologies. So yeah, I don't understand why image builder is being such a pain today, but it really is a fantastic tool. But hey, there it goes. There it works. How about that? So let's jump over to VS Code. And then we'll create a new tab here, call it Fedora 00. Then it may not, Pi-hole might not have grabbed it yet, but that IP address is 193. And see, there we go. The SSH key's already there. Looks like the web console's already up and running. Now we've got our fingerprint accepted. So we can go ahead and... I lost my screen share again. Yeah, I must need to reboot my laptop here. I apologize. This is incredibly frustrating. But as you can see, we've already got all the package updates. We've got bash completion. I've got Vim enhanced installed. And so what we'll do here in a couple of episodes is we'll start iterating with an Ansible playbook. Um, Basically, take an Ansible playbook and point it at this machine, and set up things like users, and the reason why I wouldn't do that as part of the golden image is because while I may want to have my account on every single system in my house, um, I wouldn't necessarily put my son's username. Once he gets his own laptop, he'll be running Fedora. Um, I wouldn't want my son to have an account on my daughter's laptop, and vice versa. So I would set those up using tags and Ansible playbooks. But before we do that, what I want to do um, is first. That's not helpful at all. Yeah, that's what I was afraid of. So what we're going to have to do, we're going to have to shut that system down. So what I'll need to do is resize that image file to be 32 gigs, and then we'll have to resize the root partition. Although what we may end up doing is I've got ITGO2, which is Dell PowerEdge R730. What I may do is spin that up because this is a lot easier to use on Fedora, or I guess RHEL-based distributions. It's really easy. It's all QCOW2 files. You can kind of specify how big it is, how big you want it. So I may use that instead of. I already have a templates directory. It's empty. But that's good to know. So why don't I move mount user? See, I'd started planning this ages ago, but now that I'm doing these live ops instead of live coding, because we're not coding, live ops, get it, live operations sessions, I'm actually starting to do this Fedora server compose star to templates. And then let's move over to templates here. And it looks like I can actually use QEMU-IMG to resize .img to 32 gigs. Okay, so it says the image was resized. So yeah, it's 32 gigs. The downside is that's not thin provisioned, whereas this QCOW2 file running under Fedora could be thin provisioned. But I've got a ton of space here. That's not helpful at all. I've got enough space, but we may see if we can fix that thin provisioning issue here at some point. And then just in the background here, I'm going to go ahead and restart Fedora 00. Wait for it to connect. Yeah, definitely. If you're just joining us, hang out because here in an hour we'll have the Fedora podcast. It'll be live. Noah Chalaya and myself will be interviewing a guest about open source development. Okay, so you see we're still at 4.2 gigs. So just to show you how awesome Cockpit is here, let me go back to, let's do HTTPS 192.168.1.193, port 9090. At some point, I'll add that to Pi-hole so I can use names We'll log in with my service account here, Ansible. Forgot how to type. But if you're joining me from the Fedora podcast, um, you might not have noticed, or you might not have known, but I actually host my own show, the IT Guy Show. It's over at podcast.itguyeric.com. Doing a lot of these live op sessions, as well as some. Going to start the podcast up again. Um, Talk a little bit about Linux and Linux careers coming up. Got an interview planned for a member of the Matrix Foundation, and then a little bit later, hoping to interview uh, a gentleman from the InfoSec Exchange about Mastodon and the Fediverse, especially with the world going as crazy as it is. I shared the wrong tab, so let's share the correct tab. So when you log in, it runs in a read-only mode. So let's go ahead and turn on administrative access. And then we got to authenticate with our sudo password, if I can type it correctly. Okay, there we go. So oddly enough, we only have one Oh, I didn't change the CPUs. But we do have 4 gigs of RAM, so that's good. Performance profile defaulted to virtual guest. That's a good sign. Service failure. Package kit. Interesting. That shouldn't need to be running, I wouldn't think. Oh, package kit crash. That's always good to know. That's great. Okay, so what I did want to show you though is storage here. So we can actually. Oh, it's ext4. That's bizarre. That may be a problem. That is going to be a problem. Yeah, I'm less and less excited about Unraid's virtual machine management. All this would be very easy if I were running um, on top of Fedora. ext4 might end up being a problem. Because it's not letting me grow any of this here. Interesting. Sorry, just looking something up in the background here. Yeah, I'm starting to think. So, if you joined me for the last live coding session, I actually installed RHEL 8 on our R720, R730, for reasons which I could talk about offline. I decided to replace RHEL with Fedora 41. So I now have a ready-to-go Fedora 41 box that I'm going to use as a container host and hypervisor. So let me think here. It's not letting me grow the disk. Yeah. Okay. So this isn't the end of the world, though. We should be able to. I might have to mount the virtual disk to the Unraid server and do a resize that way. Actually, used to have this process automated. Why don't we check and see if I still have that Ansible playbook? Because we could redeploy it that way. So under the IT guy, Git repository here, probably be under either be under Ansible or scripts. So I used to have these deploy server scripts that would do all this automatically. It would create a QCOW2 file. It would resize. So basically, all I would do is just give it a an application name like MTRX for Matrix, for example, and then this. Interesting. Um, then it would actually run a series of Ansible playbooks against it. Um, so this created a 2 vCPU, 4 gig of RAM disk. So we may just be able to take this script and tweak it a little bit. And I lost my screen share again. All right, folks. So I've got about 40 minutes or so before the Fedora podcast, and my system is not cooperating with me. But so we've got a template. I know it didn't work out quite the way I'd hoped, but that's what happens when you're doing a live coding session. Sorry, a live ops session. That's a little look at image builder and some of the nightmares that comes with building out a new environment. So I may end up just using ITGO2, which is my Fedora-based hypervisor. A little bit less of a pain, it looks like, to deploy there than it is on Unraid, but I'll also do some research and see if some of the same QEMU utilities exist on Unraid, and maybe I just don't use the web console for it. Maybe I'll just use the instead use the command line where I'm arguably more comfortable. So I really appreciate you all tuning in. I know this was kind of brief, but if you don't mind, connect with me out on if you go to Linktree, that Linktree link, you can actually reach me just about anywhere. It's got links to my Matrix, to my LinkedIn, to all the things really. So this was kind of fun. Nothing ever goes according to plan, so there's always that. But anyway, if you'd like, hang around, because here in about 50 minutes, actually, after I have had some lunch and get caught up with my co-host, we'll be kicking off the Fedora podcast live. So you can join us live for that. Until then, I've been Eric the IT Guy Hendricks, and this has been a live op session for building a golden image that fell on its face. But hey, sometimes it happens. But anyway, look forward to the Fedora podcast interview and talking to you all real soon. So thank you very much. Bye bye.